Keanu Reeves had never liked drawing unnecessary attention to himself, but on that day, everything went completely off track. It was impossible to imagine that a simple trip to the movies would turn into not only a serious conflict but also a lesson everyone would remember for a long time. And before you dive into this incredible story, let me ask you one thing: if values like kindness and fairness resonate with you, please support this video with a like and subscribe to the channel. It will help spread light and inspiration, making the world a little better. On that day, Keanu Reeves was in a large city movie theater. No pomp, no VIP hall booked in advance. He bought a ticket for an ordinary screening to quietly watch a new drama that was generating buzz among cinema lovers. It was midday, and in the foyer, adorned with bright posters and banners, there was an atmosphere of joyful anticipation. People stood in line for popcorn, some examined the schedule, while others hurried into the halls to grab the best seats. Keanu, dressed in a simple black t-shirt and dark jeans, looked modest and almost unnoticeable. A slight stubble and a calm expression showed he just wanted to relax. Around him, no one rushed over with cameras or autograph requests, most were caught up in their own concerns. The actor himself enjoyed this moment of anonymity, as he'd long grown tired of excessive fame. Next to him in the popcorn line was a young woman with a child, a boy of about 5, holding his mother's hand. He kept looking toward a brightly lit display of toys nearby, but the woman, judging by her tense face, couldn't afford such extra expenses. She appeared exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, lips drawn tight. She likely had a hard life, and a trip to the movies was a small celebration for them both. Nothing foreshadowed trouble until an elegant man in a suit appeared in the foyer. His manners and bearing hinted at exaggerated self-confidence. He surveyed the crowd, noticed that quite a few people were queued up at the concession stand, and frowned in annoyance. Despite the lively atmosphere, he demanded immediate service from the staff, making it clear he was not used to waiting or letting others go first. Keanu quietly observed all this, saying nothing. He was polite and calm, but in his eyes was a hint of concern, an intuition that something unpleasant was brewing. Indeed, the man began raising his voice, insulting the employees for their slowness, as if showing everyone he was a special customer who deserved special privileges. No one had recognized Keanu Reeves yet. He stood there silently, calmly waiting his turn. Meanwhile, the same shy woman and her child happened to be closest to the man in the suit. Perhaps because they were right in front of him, they drew his attention. And this story was only just beginning. The theater employees tried to calm the man down, but he merely smirked and kept creating a scene out of nothing. The young woman with the child wanted to quietly move aside to avoid conflict, but suddenly this elegantly dressed man fixed his gaze on her. "Hey, you. Can you hurry up?" he said, his voice harsh despite his outward politeness. "If you can't afford an extra ticket or toy for your kid, don't block the way for those who can." There was scorn in his voice. The people around them grew visibly tense, but nobody wanted to intervene. The woman's cheeks flushed as she looked down, and the child clung even more tightly to her hand. Noticing this, Keanu leaned forward slightly but still said nothing, hoping the situation might resolve itself. But the man turned personal. He sneered at the woman's simple appearance, snorting, clearly from a cheap neighborhood, and then cast a contemptuous look at the boy's slightly worn sneakers. Keanu frowned. He knew in his heart this had gone too far. He hated seeing the defenseless bullied, but he still did not wish to reveal who he was. He was there as a regular movie patron, and maybe the man would come to his senses on his own. The woman, her voice trembling, pleaded, "Please, don't do this. We're just waiting our turn." "How dare you speak to me like that?" he exploded. "If you have no money, why drag a kid to the movies? You should have stayed home." Tears filled the woman's eyes. Feeling her distress, the boy shrank in silence. The employees and other customers were clearly uncomfortable, but no one dared intervene. Many simply pretended not to notice, hoping the situation would calm down on its own. But Keanu Reeves decided otherwise. He stepped forward and spoke very politely to the man. "Excuse me, but maybe you could let this woman buy her tickets in peace? Everyone has the right to some enjoyment." The man turned around, looking at the actor with disdain, not recognizing him. "And who are you, exactly, to tell me what to do?" he demanded sarcastically. Keanu smiled. "I'm just another customer, like you. I see no reason to be rude to people who haven't done anything to you." At that, the man snorted in derision. "Keep your moralizing to yourself. Or do you have too much free time to butt into strangers' business?" Keanu was about to reply, but the woman softly interrupted. "Please, it's all right, I don't want any trouble." Yet the man refused to let it go, letting out a scornful laugh. "Looks like all of you here are the same, poor folks who treat going to the movies like a huge event. So now we have a hero popping up." With that, he turned proudly toward the cashier, intending to skip the entire line and be served first. The tension kept growing. Even though Keanu tried to remain composed, he was seething inside. He saw how the woman practically shrank in humiliation, and how the child glanced around in fear. Eventually, this could turn into a real fight, and that worried him most. Commandeering the cashier's attention, the man in the suit loudly demanded some discount or special treatment. "I'm a regular customer here, I deserve preferential service." The poor young worker behind the counter was flustered, repeating that the theater had no such policy. Others in line stood by, afraid to speak up. Though many sympathized with the woman and her child, they simply didn't want trouble from this aggressive man. At that moment, Keanu realized that if even he stayed silent, there would be no justice in that lobby. He ran a hand through his short hair, stepped closer to the counter, and addressed the man again. "Let's calm down. The employees don't have the authority to grant special favors. And please, stop insulting people who haven't wronged you. Everyone just wants to enjoy their movie experience." The man turned around, sneering, ready to teach a lesson to this upstart who dared stand up to him. "Oh, look who's playing the Good Samaritan. You know what, pal? Nobody asked you to get involved. Trying to be a knight in shining armor. I just think it's unfair to belittle people who haven't done anything wrong," Keanu replied, his tone still amiable, yet his eyes shone with resolve. "Oh, what do you know about fairness?" the man barked, letting out a laugh. "Maybe I've got a lot more of a right to demand respect than some nobodies." At those words, the young cashier reddened in anger, and the woman squeezed her child's hand a bit tighter. She looked as if she might burst into tears. "Your rights end," Keanu said calmly, "when you start humiliating other people." The crowd around them fell silent, straining to hear. The man's eyes narrowed in anger. "I can have anyone thrown out of here with my connections. You'll be first." He stepped toward Keanu, glaring at him at eye level. They were about the same height, but their attitudes could not have been more different. Keanu sensed the situation could turn physical any moment and tried to avoid that escalation. "I don't think you want to cross that line," Keanu said quietly. At that moment, seeing how volatile things had become, a theater employee asked fellow staff to call security. But the man in the suit seized on that. "Perfect. Let security throw out these heroes of the poor," he growled, looking maliciously at the woman and child, then at Keanu. None of the onlookers had expected such a blowout in a place meant for relaxation and entertainment. But the most interesting part was yet to come, for the antagonist still had no idea who he was dealing with. While they waited for security, the woman and her child tried to back away and leave, but the man in the suit turned to her with undisguised contempt. "What, ma'am, did you think some do-gooder would solve all your problems? You're too naive." The woman was close to tears. The boy, feeling the tension, looked at Keanu with the hope only a child can have when he thinks someone might save him. At once, Keanu met the child's gaze. He saw fear but also a wish to understand how such unfairness could exist. A split second passed, feeling like an eternity. Keanu knew that if he failed to act, this boy would leave with the belief that grown-ups are powerless against cruelty. "Listen," Keanu said again, now addressing the man, "this kind of behavior leads nowhere good. You're cutting ahead, insulting people who've done nothing to you. Is that the mark of someone who thinks he deserves more?" The man just sneered, "You're in no position to lecture me." Then he turned to the woman as though Keanu didn't exist. "And you, ma'am, if you can't even dress your kid properly, you have no business being in a movie theater. Look at him, all in cheap clothing." At that moment, the woman couldn't hold back her tears any longer, turning away so no one would see her crying. The child, sensing his mother's despair, was on the verge of tears himself. Keanu, seeing this, felt his heart twist. He couldn't stand by indifferently. Placing a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder, he said, "You've done nothing wrong," then turned to the mother, "Please, don't cry." But the man wasn't finished. "Oh, a perfect scene from some cheap soap opera. Maybe you want me to slip you money for popcorn, too?" By the looks on people's faces, they were disgusted by this respectable man, yet still unwilling to confront him. It's a familiar scene. One extremely aggressive individual holds everyone else hostage to their fear of becoming the next target. Seeing the woman and child try once more to step away, the man suddenly turned on Keanu again. "All right, pal, you're so eager to play the hero. Why so keen to protect the poor? Maybe you're no better off yourself." He let out a harsh laugh. Keanu stayed calm, refusing to match his rudeness. He simply exhaled deeply and said firmly, "I won't let you keep insulting this family. Please calm down and buy your tickets in turn." "And what are you gonna do about it?" the man roared, raising his voice even louder. "Call the cops. Who do you think they'll believe?" Just then, some theater employees arrived with a security guard. The guard tried to figure out the situation, but the suited man instantly flooded him with complaints. "This hero and that woman are interfering with my purchase. You need to kick them out, I'm the paying customer here." The guard looked at Keanu and the other witnesses, bewildered. It wasn't as simple as it seemed, given the man's brazen confidence in his own rightness. Keanu realized that merely calling security wouldn't solve anything if this arrogant fellow refused to back down. Suddenly, someone on staff recognized him. A female employee whispered to another, "That's Keanu Reeves." The rumor spread quickly among those standing near, "Is that really Keanu Reeves?" But the man in the suit still didn't catch on. He saw only a nobody blocking his quest for special treatment. The climax of this intense scene was close, but no one knew exactly how it would end. The man kept insisting he be served first, that these people didn't belong in the same space with him. Keanu stepped closer to the woman, softly asking if she was all right. She nodded, wiping away her tears, and not knowing how else to express her gratitude, she only whispered, "Thank you." The child gazed at Keanu with the awe of someone looking at a true hero. Keanu returned that look with a gentle smile. But the man found such a scene only more aggravating. He cast a mocking glance at them all. "What, you all rehearsing a drama for me? Think I'll apologize to you?" Right then, the security guard timidly asked him to calm down, "Or else." "Or else what?" the man snapped. "Don't even think about laying a finger on me." He yanked out his phone and flashed it around, showing off his contact list. "One call, and you're all fired." It appeared his self-importance had peaked. He felt invincible. That was when a quiet but resolute voice sounded from behind, "Maybe that would work on someone else, but there are things that matter more than any connections or threats." He turned around. Now Keanu stood in a spot where the foyer lights more clearly illuminated his face. A few people in the crowd started whispering, "That's really him. Keanu Reeves." The man in the suit scowled, scanning Keanu with a snide look. "You think if you spout cryptic lines, I'll back down?" he sneered. His arrogance ran so deep that, even if he realized who stood before him, he'd probably keep going. Meanwhile, more bystanders whispered that this was, indeed, the famous actor. Some tried to tip off the rude man, others continued watching in silence, awaiting the final showdown. And that showdown was quickly approaching. The more tension grew, the louder the whispers around them. "It's Keanu Reeves, look, that's the actor." Some were tempted to approach him, but the situation was too charged for selfies. The man gradually sensed things weren't going his usual way. Glancing about, he noticed the quiet buzz around him, but no one rushed to clarify anything. He only saw a lot of uneasy glances and hushed conversations behind his back. "What are you all whispering about?" he yelled. "Maybe you'll clue me in." Then a bold young woman from the crowd said softly, "That's Keanu Reeves, the famous actor." The man turned to Keanu, squinting, then suddenly burst into laughter. "Keanu Reeves? You've got to be kidding. He wouldn't just stand in line like a nobody. Where's his security, huh?" He shook his head, though uncertainty now flickered across his face. The more he looked at Keanu, the more familiar those features seemed. "You're lying," he muttered, but not as confidently as before. Someone else in the crowd piped up, "No, it's definitely him." For a moment, an expression of confusion and doubt wavered on his face, as he realized the striking resemblance. Keanu decided to break the silence. Meeting the man's gaze calmly, he said, "Yes, my name is Keanu Reeves. But I'm here as a regular customer, wanting to watch a movie quietly, not see you bully others." A hush fell. Some people gasped upon hearing the actor confirm his identity. The man in the suit took a small step back, suddenly aware this might blow up in his face. But his pride wasn't fully gone yet. "So what? Think I'll bow down just because you're some star?" He no longer sounded quite so sure. Everyone was watching him, clearly disapproving. Even the security guard now looked at him with reproach. "I'm not asking that," Keanu said evenly. "I just want you to stop insulting these people." The man's face twitched, as if he finally realized how ridiculous and petty he appeared. He clenched his jaw and surveyed the crowd. No one sympathized with him. In fact, even the guard seemed to disapprove. He cleared his throat, trying to straighten up and appear dignified. "Fine. Maybe I did go overboard." It came out unconvincing, but those watching finally breathed a sigh of relief. The woman still held her child, obviously shaken. Keanu looked at her with compassion. When the tension had eased a bit, the theater employees asked the man again if he planned to buy a ticket according to the normal process. No longer strutting, he glanced awkwardly at Keanu, who gazed back with no anger, only pity, then muttered, "Yes." "One ticket." While the cashier processed his order, the man kept darting his eyes around, seemingly seeking a place to hide. Instead of making a triumphant exit, he was now simply stuck in the embarrassment of having everyone see him behave so disgracefully. Security no longer bothered Keanu, having realized the real troublemaker was the other man. In fact, some staff now looked at the actor with deep respect. Keanu turned to the woman and her son, "Are you all right? I hope this incident didn't ruin your day." She nodded, tears of relief threatening to spill over. The boy looked at Keanu the way a child looks at a genuine superhero. "Thank you so much," she whispered. "I don't know how I can ever repay you." Keanu gave a slight smile. "There's no need. Just enjoy your movie." Summoning a bit of courage, the boy said, "Are you, really Keanu Reeves? Mom showed me one of your movies on TV." The actor bent down so their eyes were level. "Yes, that's me. But I'm not a superhero, you know. I'm just a guy who loves movies and believes we should all treat each other with respect." The boy nodded, a small smile breaking through the fear. The woman smiled shyly too. For them, this wasn't just being rescued from an insult, it felt like a gift from fate, a rare chance to encounter a global star, one who was genuinely kind. The crowd began to disperse, aware that the tension had eased. The suited man, having purchased his ticket, tried to disappear to the other end of the foyer, but he could still feel the weight of disapproval around him. He understood he was completely exposed, especially after realizing who had stood up to him. People started cautiously approaching Keanu, requesting photos and autographs. Politely, he asked them to let him finish his outing in peace. Most understood and respected his wishes. The woman and her son were preparing to go into the theater when the clearly flustered manager came over and offered them VIP tickets, as an apology for the unpleasant incident, he said. Please don't refuse. Keanu simply smiled upon hearing that, but the woman felt uncertain. We can watch the movie with everyone else. Our normal tickets are fine. Yet the manager insisted. Our theater values its guests and doesn't want you to leave with a bad memory. Let us do this for you. Sensing her discomfort, Keanu softly told her, sometimes you should accept a kind offer. It's not humiliating, it's just their way of showing respect. She nodded, voice trembling slightly. Thank you. So the three of them headed down a special corridor to a more comfortable auditorium with plush seats and limited seating. The boy gazed around, eyes wide. For him, this day was no mere movie trip, but an unforgettable adventure. Inside the VIP hall, only a handful of viewers were scattered around. The wide, soft chairs, gentle half-light, and escape from the noisy foyer created a genuinely peaceful atmosphere. The woman and her son chose seats closer to the center, while Keanu sat nearby, leaving them enough space so they wouldn't feel awkward. May I sit here? He asked, as if seeking permission. Of course, she replied, still somewhat in disbelief, feeling as though life itself had orchestrated their meeting. Her son stared at Keanu with awe shining in his eyes, realizing that this was more than just being saved from a rude man. It was an experience he would cherish forever. A brief flashback crossed the woman's mind. She recalled gathering her last savings to treat her son to this movie. She sighed in relief that, thanks to this actor's intervention, they had avoided the worst kind of humiliation and confrontation. The film began. The boy was enthralled by the story playing out on the giant screen. From time to time, the woman glanced at Keanu, as if to confirm again that all of this was truly real. Whenever their eyes met, he nodded in a friendly way. He knew that fame was merely an outer shell. For him, the real point was stepping up when kindness was needed. For a while, everyone forgot about the earlier drama. The movie's plot drew them into its own conflicts and resolution. Only when the lights came up after the end credits did Keanu lean toward the woman and ask, "How did you like it?" She smiled. So moving. But it seems like the story we lived through today was even more emotional. Keanu grinned. Life can be far more interesting than the movies. When they returned to the foyer, the same lively atmosphere was in full swing. The suited man hovered near the exit, trying to slip away quickly to avoid everyone's stares. Truly, in his arrogance he had only managed to lock himself in a cage of shame. Yet for everyone else, this story became a lesson. A simple act of bravery and kindness could shift the entire course of events. Soon, someone posted about the incident on social media, and word spread about how a famous actor had not hesitated to defend a mother and child. People admired how genuine humanity doesn't need bright spotlights to be seen. The woman quietly asked Keanu, "Aren't you tired of all this attention?" He smiled. "A little. But the main thing is that you're okay now." The boy stuck out his hand, as if to say goodbye. "Thank you. I'll never forget this day." Keanu shook his hand and smiled in return. "Me neither. Always remember that doing good is more important than appearing strong." The woman thanked him again, and the actor headed for the exit. A few people approached, hoping for a selfie, but he politely declined. "Sorry, friends, I'm in a hurry." He slipped outside and took one last glance behind him, seeing the woman and her child preparing to leave without fear or shame. A warmth spread through him, the realization that even a small gesture can have a huge impact on someone's life. Stepping out of the theater, Keanu drew a deep breath of fresh air. The city bustled in its usual rhythm, cars, pedestrians, shop windows. But now, with renewed appreciation, he remembered how just a spark of kindness can scatter the darkness. Friends, this story is a vivid reminder that even the most famous person can remain humble and compassionate. Keanu Reeves didn't seek to cause a big public scene, he simply and with dignity stood up for a stranger and her child. He wasn't chasing recognition or praise, but his sincere desire to help revealed just how powerful simple kindness can be. In the end, it shows how words and actions can change destinies. This small event in a movie theater might inspire others to show more empathy and understanding. Meanwhile, that man who so proudly boasted of his superiority ended up alone with his own ego. His humiliation became a clear sign that arrogance and aggression command no respect, they only create tension and harm. And the main lesson is, never be afraid to stand on the side of good. A small act of support, a single word in someone's defense, might turn out to be life-changing for them. You don't have to be a Hollywood star to make the world better, just be someone who values justice and compassion. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. I hope it inspires you to make your own small acts of kindness, which ultimately help brighten our world.